Cool. Thanks for being here. My name is Ami Freeberg. I'm the Assistant Director of Strategy and Partnership with Cultivate KC. And for the last year and a half or so, I've been also filling the role of Metro Farms and Food Systems Program Manager. But I'm really excited that Haley, and you can say your last name because I don't know that I'm actually pronouncing it correctly. Haley is on the call with us today, and she has recently accepted the position of Metro Farms and Food Systems Program Manager with Cultivate KC, and she'll be joining our team in mid-November. So I'm getting this project, this mini grant program off the ground, applications open, but you'll be hearing a lot from Haley toward the end of the process as we're making award decisions and getting contracts and checks out the door. So I'm really glad she could be here today and say a quick hello.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so my name is Haley Lucet, and I cannot wait to get started. And it's lovely to meet you all.
Thanks for being here. Do you want to say anything about your background or just
Oh, sure.
say?
Yeah, so I have been farming since about 2015 on and off, and managing farms since about 2018, and mostly in Southern California. This is my second season here in Missouri, and the differences are staggering, and I'm still catching on myself. But I love to be outside, both as part of my job and outside of work. And I went to school to get my master's and ended up in nutrition, ended up studying more about food systems. And so this role has me really excited to get to dive into the Kansas City food system.
Awesome. Thank you, Haley. And we're excited for her farming experience and background to be a great resource to all of you as well. So appreciate you taking the time to be here for a few minutes. So
Yeah,
for the
thanks
next,
for
we have
having
the
me.
next hour or so set aside to hopefully do a quick 15-20 minute overview of the mini grant program, and then answer all your questions. And then at the end, we'll go through kind of screen sharing, actually walking through the website, the application process. So just when you get on there to actually fill it out, you feel really comfortable and know where you're going and what you're doing. So as we go, feel free to put questions in the chat. I'm going to try to not answer questions as like throughout the presentation because some of it may get covered. And then once we get to the end of the overview, we'll take some time to answer any questions at that time before we do the walkthrough of the website. And then any more questions at the end. Here we go. Okay. Thumbs up if you can see the screen. Great. That's what we want. All right, so Cultivate Kansas City, I think probably most of you know we're a nonprofit organization with a mission to grow food, farms, and communities in support of a healthy, equitable local food system for all. General quick overview, we have four program areas. We run the New Roots training program. It's a training farm in Northeast Kansas City, Kansas, primarily working with refugees and new American farmers as a business development incubator. We run a food access program. So we are the local partner for the Double Up Food Bucks program at farmers markets. And our food access team is also getting ready to launch a mobile market in Wyandotte County. So we're really excited for the launch of the Dot Mobile Grocer in our food access work. I'm going to skip over urban farmer development because that's really, and Metro Farms and Food Systems is really where we're going to dig in today. And then our other focus is the Westport Commons Farm, soon to be relocated to a hopefully soon determined location, which that farm is really public education focused. It's a place for a community to come out to get their hands dirty, to learn about growing food, and to be an inspiration and resource for other urban farmers as well. So that's the home of our kind of public engagement arm of our work. And then urban farmer development, which is part of the Metro Farms and Food Systems program, is basically the nutshell, whatever it takes to help a farmer grow. So what that looks like is really a mix of technical assistance. So that's getting out on farms, talking to people, having one-on-one conversations. We offer some cooperative bulk purchasing. So we look for things that would make a big cost difference if we could order it in bulk rather than each individual going out and ordering their own. So that's bulk seed. Right now we have bulk seed potato ordering open, and then also some fertilizers, soil mix, and other soil amendments. Both of those orders are currently open. So if you want to chat more about that, we're happy to send information as well. We host the annual Farmers and Friends meeting. This year will be the 19th annual event, which is an opportunity to network with other growers, share resources, get inspired right at the beginning of the season. So the date for that coming up will be February 17th of 2024. This program also does some policy and advocacy work, thinking about where there are barriers within our local and state regulations, barriers to urban farming and sustainable local food systems. So this program gets a little bit involved in that work. And then the money, that's what we're really here to talk about today, is the Get Farming Mini Grants program, which is the program that we run independently to offer grants to growers. Okay, a little bit of history about the Get Farming Mini Grant Program. It was started in 2011 as part of a collaborative effort called Get Growing KC. So Cultivate KC teamed up with Kansas City Community Gardens, another nonprofit focusing more on community gardens and school gardens, and whereas we focus more on the urban farm businesses. And then Lincoln University Extension, which has an innovative small farmer outreach program across the state, including a representative in the Kansas City metro area. So these three organizations came together and said, we're getting all these requests for help. How can we better work together, coordinate, collaborate, and applied for a joint grant from the Health Forward Foundation. Health Forward has been a great funder for many years of farm and food systems work in Kansas City. So they funded this collaborative for 3 years. And as part of that, they also said, we're getting all these requests for $5,000 grants, $2,000 grants from smaller organizations. And we just don't have the capacity to lead or to make decisions of that kind of, or the expertise to do that kind of funding. So they encouraged this collaborative and partnered with this collaborative to start the Get Growing KC mini grants. After a couple years, that funding ran out as the collaborative, but Cultivate KC continued this farmer-focused mini grant program, and then Kansas City Community Gardens has continued a community garden-focused mini grant program. So those are kind of the two distinctions and where this all came from. So since 2011, we have funded over 136 projects totaling just over $250,000. So that's made a big impact in our local growing community. Historically, like I said, this has been funded exclusively by Health Forward Foundation. And over the last couple of years, we've known that they were shifting their strategy as a foundation and as an organization and moving away from farm and food system support, which is really unfortunate for our broader community. But with that, knowing that was coming, we started reaching out to try to diversify the funding source for this mini grant program. So Hall Family Foundation came in last year for the first time as a funder of this program, as well as Cargill. And we also know coming into this next year, the next 5 years, we've written in some funding to some of the federal grants we're getting to put small amounts of funding into this mini grant pool. So we're able to get that out the door to local growers who are doing this work on the ground. So we're continuing to look for new partners to be part of this pool of funding that's available to local growers, and hopefully continue expanding the pool. And we have goals of increasing the award amount and increasing the geographic eligibility. But for now, this is where we are with our funding. Okay, so the purpose of the mini grants is to help existing farms expand their capacity to produce food within the Kansas City metropolitan area. And that includes, well, I have another slide about what that includes. So that's the purpose. There's also definitely a focus on increasing food access in areas where there's limited access to fresh local food. So as we go through, just kind of keep that in mind. We want this to be, the purpose of this grant is to be accessible. Some of the federal grant opportunities are incredibly technical, paperwork intensive. So the idea is to make this as easy as possible for people to apply, and for us and our team that are administering the grant to be available to answer questions, and provide technical support throughout the process. The grants, currently we're offering grants of up to $3,500 each year, and the time frame for that is about a year to get the project done. Geographic eligibility. So as I briefly mentioned with Jill on the phone, we've kind of shifted the eligibility. In the previous years, it was basically just Wyandotte and Johnson County, and it kind of expanded further east in Missouri based on Health Forward's service area. Without them as a funder, we've decided to kind of balance that better, to better serve the farmers that are kind of immediately touching Kansas City and serving, their food is coming into the Kansas City food shed. So with that broad eligible area, we also are acknowledging that our focus is really on growers in areas with low income and limited access to fresh food. So this map on the right, oh, sorry. I was moving the wrong slides. I don't think you guys got the last, oops. Here you go. Now you can see the maps. Sorry about that. So this map on the right is kind of the focus area. Those bright red areas are areas where we know there's higher barriers to accessing funding, higher barriers to accessing fresh food. So that's where if it comes down to making tough decisions about funding, we are acknowledging that we're prioritizing those geographic areas within the whole eligible area. That's not to say if you're outside those areas don't apply, just to be transparent about what the review committee is taking into consideration. And then also we are keeping in mind that we are prioritizing growers who are Black, Indigenous, New Americans, or people of color, because of the historic and ongoing barriers that they face to accessing funding for the growing that they are doing. So grower eligibility is our next thing. So basically, to be eligible for this program, you have to be a farmer growing and selling food with at least 1 year of documented sales. So there are different ways to prove your documented sales. So there's some flexibility with to some degree within all of this. But if you maybe are setting up a new farm site, but you have history growing at another farm site, talk to us about what that might look like, to show that you're planning, you have a history of growing and you're planning to sell, because that's really the focus of this grant program, is the farm business side. We do also support nonprofit gardens. So it typically not a traditional community garden, here's your raised bed, that an individual family can come rent, but more of the types of nonprofit gardens that are larger scale community efforts, either for the participating growers to share the food, or for donation gardens where they're getting donated to a food pantry or something along those lines. Again, there's flexibility within that. So there does need to be, I guess what's not included is an individual that's growing for themselves or their family, or an individual that's growing to donate without any kind of track record of that. So we are looking for some of that organizational infrastructure if it's not a farm business. And then the grant has always been open to entrepreneurs who are looking to increase services to farmers. So that could look like, I know many years ago there was a farmer who also was looking to acquire a trailer so he could drive his tractor around town to offer tilling services to other farmers. So that's the kind of thing that would fall into that category. And then the focus is really on raising or growing food. So we're not at this time funding native plant nurseries or flower farms. Not that you can't have those incorporated in your farm, but the focus is on food. Restrictions. So funds will not be awarded to farmers who have received one of these mini grants in the past 2 years. If you received one prior to that, you are eligible again. And then if you're thinking about a project that is eligible for other programs, such as the Kansas City Grow Water Access, KC Grow Water Access Program, if you're in KCMO and you want to install a water hydrant on your farm, there's another funding pool for that. Or the high tunnel, if you want to build a high tunnel, there's the NRCS EQIP cost share program. So if you want to call and chat about your project ideas and what other potential resources might be available, generally we want you to think about what other options and resources are out there, and mini grant is kind of filling the gaps that aren't already being filled. I know the last round of grant review, we also had a lot of discussion about purchasing tools that are kind of a once a year use, where there might be opportunity for tool sharing already available. So just something to think about. If it's not something that has to be in your possession at all times, like talk to us about other opportunities for collaboration to meet those needs. Okay, typically eligible projects include expansion costs. So that's buying some sort of equipment that will allow you to increase production, or a one-time cost associated with bringing new land into production. Infrastructure projects, so a lot of projects that we see is constructing packing sheds or building a greenhouse, not a high tunnel, or installing a permanent irrigation system or cold storage. This photo here is Bepa, one of the graduates of the New Roots program, and we helped her secure additional funding. She was awarded a mini grant, and then our New Roots team helped her secure funding from SARE to buy a trailer and outfit it as a mobile cooler. So that was a project in the last couple of years. So there's opportunities as well to kind of leverage the mini grant to get other funding sources to complete the project. The review panel has a lot of experience in the room typically, so they may have suggestions about modifying your budget or where you might be able to get a cheaper resource or something. So if we're going through the review project and our process and there are ideas about modifying your budget or project, our team might come back to you and with suggestions. And then we also welcome projects that have funding from other sources. So if you want to do a $10,000 project and this mini grant is one piece of it, as long as you can show that you have the other pieces in place to complete the project, then we would love to be like one piece of the puzzle to get it done. So I think this is kind of a really broad, high level overview of what reviewers are looking for in a project. So we want the application to be for a specific project. We don't want to see, I need supplies to start my farm. We don't want to see like, I just want my water bill covered and we're not going to cover things that are annual expenses that you're going to have every year as a grower. We're really looking to invest in things that kind of take you from where you are now to that next level. So think about something specific. You may have a few different pieces of that project, but if you can tie it together and communicate why you chose that project as the most important thing to move your farm forward, that is really important to kind of tell the story of what you want to do and why it's important to your farm. So explaining, we want you to explain what impact the project will have on your farm. So think about where you are today. And I'm saying using farm, knowing it could also be garden or other type of project. So think about where you are today. And if you get this $3,500 grant award and complete your project, what will your farm look like next year? And how will it be different? I think that's what the review committee really wants to see as they're going through applications. And it may be obvious to you what impact it will make, but if you don't explain that, it may not be obvious to the people who are reading your application. So I think another thing that the review committee is really looking at is details that show you can get this project done within the year timeframe. So if checks are mailed out in January of 2025, how do we know when we're looking at your application that you can get it done? So and we'll walk through the whole application, but questions about the timeline and the budget will really, and the skills that you have that will be useful, or the network that you have that people who can help you get this project done is something we want to really see as we're reading through those projects. And it's something that, to be honest, in the last couple of years of reviewing, there's been a sort of a lack of clarity. So we're having to like make assumptions and sort of guesses at what the farmer is thinking. So I'm going over this to really make sure you're thinking about both, okay, what's the big picture of your farm, but like, how are you communicating that? And that can be, well, I'll talk about it when I get to the written or the application part. So the project budget is a piece of the application. So there's a template that I'll also open up and walk through with all of you, but we want to see details of all the activities and expenses that are presented in the narrative. So if you're saying, I'm going to build a shed to store my tools, but your budget is lacking lumber, or an obvious thing that would be needed, and don't just put shed in your budget, like really be specific about what are all the pieces. If you're buying a kit, that's one thing, you can put the shed kit, but then think through, are you going to need a concrete pad to put your shed on? Make sure that's included in the budget. So just like really think through the whole process of the project and what is everything that you're going to need to get that project completed. And we're going to be looking at, does the budget match the narrative of the project or the description? We encourage you, if for larger items, to get prices or bids from multiple companies. It's Home Depot's down the street from me. It's sometimes that's just easiest, but if it's a larger item, we would encourage you to look at Lowe's, at Menards, at different options, and see what the most cost-effective option will be. And then if the project costs are more than the mini grant award, again, we want to be clear about where that additional income is coming from. If you're applying for a $10,000 project and you don't know where that $6,500 is coming from, we're going to be more hesitant to give you the $3,500 because there's less confidence that project will be able to be completed. Additional documents. So the last part of the application is some proof of your nonprofit status if you're an organization or a fiscal sponsor. So that's a 501c3 letter. And then for the business side of things, we've looked at different things, but either the state retail sales license, profit and loss statements for the prior year, sales tax returns for your prior season, something that shows us you're farming as a business is what we want to see. And then there's just kind of a general, you can include up to 5 documents that support your project in some way. So looking at just sending some photos of your farm shows us, here's what you're doing, here's, we can see, get a better sense of your growing and operation. It could include letters of support if you have neighbors that love what you're doing, or customers, or someone who will be involved in the project. Have them write you a little letter just saying, this is a great project, and attach that. If you're applying for something that requires contractors, we would love to see multiple bids for those large expenses. So that can be included in the additional documentation as well. Okay, I'm going to run through the application process. We use Google Forms. It's linked on our website now, and we'll walk through that too. There's two different application forms. The first one is one that requires a Gmail sign-in. And that's our preference for a couple of reasons. One, it will save your progress as you're working on it, so you don't have to sit down and submit it all at once. It automatically saves with your Gmail account if you reopen that form. Two, you can upload documents directly into that application form. They get directly sent to our Cultivate KC Gmail, and we don't have to deal with emailing and uploading and all the different moving of the attached documents. Not everybody has or wants to use a Gmail account, so there's a second option that doesn't require a Gmail sign-in. The challenge with that, it won't save your work as you're going through it. So you want to make sure you're prepared to sit down and write and submit the whole application form. And then you also won't be able to upload documents directly into the form. So you'll have to email those to me right after you submit your form. I'm going to actually skip over the questions, or the question overview right now. And we'll run through the whole form on the website. But the questions are directly tied to a lot of these different pieces that I've just walked through as far as what the review committee is looking for. And then, so you'll open up the Google form, you'll answer the questions, including some contact information, your address. And then there's also an option to submit video responses. So rather than typing out responses to the questions in the application, we would love if people feel more comfortable or are interested in recording. I mean, it can be a selfie video on your phone of you talking about your responses to the question, addressing the questions on the application form. And then you could, depending on what's easiest, upload it to a Google Drive and copy the link so we can view it, or upload it to YouTube and copy the link and so we can view it. And that can be your response to the questions. Obviously not for like your name and address, we want those typed out, but for the more narrative questions, we would love people to use that video option. Submit the required documents that we just went over, and then the deadline is 5 p.m. on November 30th. Okay, sorry. The review process, here's a sample, and I'll walk through the actual document, but this is the score sheet that the review committee members are looking at when they're making their decisions. So these kind of questions and scoring are directly tied to the questions on the application. So it's basically, like I've already said, we want to know if this meets the goal of the grant to increase your capacity to grow food. We want to know, does the application demonstrate the impact that the project itself will have on the farm or garden? Is there a realistic timeline? Do we think this project can be completed within the grant timeline? Has the applicant indicated they have the skills or the plan for completing the project? And then is the budget practical and well developed? And another piece we're asking about this year, has the applicant demonstrated efforts towards building community relationships, recognizing that in urban agriculture, you're not just on an island or not out in a rural community with no neighbors. Your farm is directly integrated with your community and with your neighbors. And we see it as really important and critical to the success of an urban farm to be integrated with the community that they're growing in. So that can look really different for different growers, but something that we want to be thinking about as we're reviewing reviewing applications, and just for you to be thinking about as you're applying is what efforts have you put into connecting with the community that you're growing in. So once you've applied and the committee has reviewed it and received your award, our team will be in touch, and probably Haley will send out the award agreements for you to sign. We're using DocuSign right now. So it's a standard kind of saying you will do the project, you will meet, yeah, basically I will do the project within the timeline. But there is some like legal language that's required for us to include on that agreement. We will put, once that award agreement is signed, we'll put the check in the mail, and we're looking to get those out the door earlier than we have in the past. So we're looking to make our decisions in the end of December, so we can get checks out the door in January. And once those agreements are signed, that gives you most of the winter, that the slower months, to really start working on your project. And then it'll give you kind of into the next January to get it completed. Typically, we'll go out and do a site visit within 4 to 6 months. Here's me and Courtney out at Global One Urban Farming just a few weeks ago. So we check in, one, just to, it's a friendly check-in. It's not an inspection. It's a, hey, how are things going? Are there any questions you have? Is there anything we can do to support your work? And then the last step is completing our final report. This is not an intimidating thing. We've made it easier and easier. And right now it's 3 questions. It's, did you do the project? What impact did it have? And one other thing. Really designed to be an easy project. We just want to see that you use the grant funds on what you said you were going to. And then we want to see some photos of what you did with the project. I'm going to stop there and see who's still here. Cool. I couldn't see what was going on. So just want to take a few minutes to pause to answer some questions. And then we'll take a few minutes to walk through the website and actually like what it looks like to walk through the application process. Courtney, were you seeing anything coming in the chat that should be?
I think the only question that was the only like actual question that was asked was, are there any income caps, for the applicants? And I think Semra answered it.
Okay, great. No income caps or limits. That is accurate.
Awesome. It looks like one person had to jump off, but gave a pretty detailed explanation of what it would be, what the funding would be for. And so I told him that you would review that and hopefully maybe be able to get back to him.
Okay, great.
But that's it.
Anybody want to have any other questions? Want to jump in? No? You want to see the website? Go through that process? Let me get it pulled up. Okay. So when you go to, and Courtney, if you want to drop this link in the chat, that would be great. It's on our website under Farmers, Farm and Food System Funding Opportunities. Actually, I'll start there in case you don't have the direct link handy. We have this handy grants list. So this is a compilation of a bunch of different grants that may be useful to you in some way. Is our mini grant even on here? I'll have to make sure it is. Oh, there it is. Yeah, up here. This is organized by if it's currently open, and then the grant deadline. So this right at the top, it should show you like what's coming up most frequently, or if it has a rolling deadline. Right under that table is our grant program. So here is the Get Farming mini grants link. It's tracking as I go to different pages, right? Will you just confirm? Okay. Sometimes it gets stuck. So right here, this is the two different applications forms that I mentioned. This top one is the primary one that does require the Gmail account sign in. The second one, it says no Google required. So if you don't want to or don't have a Gmail, you can use that form. It'll just require those extra steps of emailing the documents. Okay, I am going to click on and then all of the eligibility information that I just walked through came straight from our website. So it's all here. This recording will be posted. And there's the timeline that we've also sort of talked through, but specifically listed out there. All right, I'm going to jump into the application form. Did it follow me to the new tab? Okay. So up at the top, there's some important links that you'll want to see, not just skim over and jump into the filling it out. So the grant information and eligibility, that takes you back to the main website that goes over all of that. The scoring criteria will take you to that rubric that I shared. So if you want to go back and think, what are the reviewers looking at when they're looking at my application? This is what they're looking at. And then the budget template. So we used to require a budget template. We moved away from that. It got really complicated for the reviewers without having a sort of standardized template. So we are going back to using this recommended budget format. We don't want you to open up this link. Well, you probably won't be able to, and type into the Google Doc. I think it's set so you won't be able to type into it. But we want you to go to File and download an Excel or open document, whatever you use, or make a copy as another Google Sheet. So we'll go, well, I'm just going to type in here, but that's a really important step, to make a copy and save it as a separate file from this template, because everybody's going to be able to open up this template and see it. So we want to make sure it doesn't get changed, but I'm going to change it right now. So first, you want to make sure your name is at the top of the budget, the copy that you downloaded and save, and put in the date and year. That just helps us make sure we're looking at the right document with the right applicant. And then, actually, that's redundant. Oh no, this is where we want you to put the date and the applicant name in. That's what you should name the file. So if you include the file, your name in the file name, that also helps us make sure we're opening up the right document with the right application. Okay, this first section is income. So the amount requested from Cultivate KC, this is going to be your mini grant. So let's say we're building a tool storage shed. So we are going to probably need the whole $3,500. And it's going to stay as pending because you're submitting your application. You don't know that you're getting this funding yet. This part that's grayed out will automatically fill in, and that's what you can use to sort of track your expenses as you go through. So right now, let's say I have another source of funding. So I'm going to say I have $1,000 in savings from my CSA income. I have $1,000 that I've saved from last season to work on this shed. So it's already confirmed. I have that in hand. So that just tells me, the reviewer, okay, this person has the $4,500 that they need to get the project done. Without it, if the expenses are $4,500 and the income is only this potential $3,500, I don't know where that gap is going to come from. So, I mean, it can be personal savings, it can be borrow from a friend. It doesn't have to be another grant. It could be other grant sources, but just make sure that the income matches or exceeds the expenses. Okay, I'm just going to make up some numbers really quick here. So tool shed kit, $3,000. We are going to buy this from Home Depot. And then what else do we need? Concrete for a pad to set it on. Okay, we're going to put in $1,000 or $700 for concrete. I don't know. I'm making this up. Don't use this budget. Buy from Home Depot. I know that I can't build this shed myself, but I know I can hire my neighbor to help me for 5 hours, and he'll charge me, or no, let's say 10 hours. He'll charge me $25 an hour. So neighbor labor. So what did I say? 10 hours, $25 an hour, $250 to pay my neighbor to help me build the shed. And that's allowed. You cannot say, I'm going to pay myself $25 an hour to build my shed, but you can, if you need extra help or skills that you don't have, you can use up to 40% of the total project costs can be personnel or paying somebody to help with the work. Neighbor agreed to help for $25 per hour. So we want to see some level of detail in here about where this number came from, if it's not obvious. And then what else do we need? We need some lumber to have the form for the concrete pad. Okay, and then we'll paint the shed. Okay, we'll call that good, but you get the idea. So it's not the full, but we want to see more or less the expenses matching the income. And we would be comfortable with like a construction project if there was like extra supplies, because things always cost a little bit different, or you need an extra screw or something. If you put in, $100 for extra supplies, we know that things come up. So without getting too specific, but otherwise we want to see pretty specifically what you're planning to do and how you got to that number that you're asking for. So you would do this, save it, download it. You don't need to do anything over in this column, but we do leave it here as a useful tool. Once you get the grant and are going through, you can use this to say, oh, the shed actually cost $2,750. Okay, we received our mini grant up here, and we have our CSA income. So now we actually had to spend $750 on concrete. We ended up working with the neighbor for 12 hours, so it was $300. So that just helps you kind of keep track of, well, we were a little bit under here, but we can go over here if it's needed and track how you're doing as you go through the working on your project. So that's what that part of this budget spreadsheet is for. Any questions on the budget? Okay, keep going. Let's see. So that was the budget template. Yes. Who?
Oh, just the like the labor part. If you
Mhm.
pay your neighbor, do you need the receipt, like the actual receipt for that, or?
So we are not asking for receipts with the grant report anymore.
Okay.
We want to see that you got the project done. So no, so you don't need it. If you need it for your personal accounting and record keeping for your farm business, yes, ask your neighbor for a receipt. We are not going to ask for that. Yeah, what we want to see is that the project got done. Okay, I'm going to go back to the application form where we got to that budget template up here. And then, so basic contact information, first name, last name, your farm name, phone number, so we can follow up and ask any questions that we might have as we start reviewing. We want the mailing address. This is where we will send the check. For some people, mailing address and farm address are the same. For some people, they're not. So then we also ask for your farm address so we can get a sense of where you're growing the food. Farm address, and then project details. So this is where you're going to start talking about what you're actually going to do with the money. Describe your project, come up with a name. That's just so we have something handy to call it as we can say Pawa's Tool Shed Project. And then describe your project. Yeah, so what you plan to do and be as specific as you can. Specific doesn't mean long. Specific means you're to the point, you know exactly what you want to do and how you're going to do it. Describe your project's impact. This goes back to what we were talking about. We want to see why you chose this project, how your farm will look in a year after you complete this project, timeline, and then get into completing the timeline. Assuming you get the grant in the check in January of 2024, I think we said about 14 months. So March of 2025. So you have all the off season of this year. We know it's hard to get some of these projects done during the growing season. So trying to span those two kind of fall winter times to get this project done. So that's your timeline. And then tell us about the skills. So if you know how to build, I'm going to roll with this shed example. You know how to build your shed, great, put that in there. If you don't, but you know your neighbor can help you, or your son or whoever, your daughter, get those details in here. So the committee's looking at this, has a really clear idea of how this project will get done. And if you don't have the skills, it's okay to also be honest and say, I need help finding the right person to help me complete this project. We would actually rather hear from you before you apply and try to help you work through that before you put your application in, so that you can answer this question accurately, that you have a plan to complete the project. And then we want to hear this farmer garden details. This is not about the project, but overall, who are you? Why do you grow? When did you start growing? Who do you feed? Are you going to farmers markets? Are you feeding having a farm stand, selling to your neighbors? Like where is your food going? And then I started talking about the community engagement efforts. We want you to just think about how you're engaging with your neighbors or broader community, and as a farmer, what that looks like for you. And then that's it. That's all of the questions. And then documents. This is the upload one of these documents, not all of these documents, that shows proves you're a business or shows your nonprofit status. The project budget. So you downloaded that template that we worked through. You now have a file on your computer. Upload it here, or if you're using the other form, email it to me. And then additional documentation. So that's what I mentioned, the 5 documents. Can be anything that you think shows off the work you're doing. We love seeing pictures of farms. And then we're asking just for demographic information for our accountability of being equitable in our grant review and grant making process. We ask for race and ethnicity and gender. And then this is just a checklist that you've reviewed that you're located in the eligible area. You haven't received a mini grant in the last 2 years. You've reviewed the guidelines, and then you're either a nonprofit and have uploaded that, or you're a for-profit and you've uploaded that documentation. And then you hit submit and you're done. And you will get, if you're using this form that's tied to your Gmail, you will get a copy of your application emailed to you automatically. So you have that for your records. If you are using the not Google sign-in form, I don't think it emails you directly. So you might want to like do a print, save as a PDF before you submit it if you want a copy for your records. All right, we've got 4 minutes. What questions do you have? Anybody? Did I cover everything?
Maybe that rubric that you showed on what the committee goes over,
Sorry,
that checklist, where
the
is that
first part
again?
of it. Oh, where is it? It is at the top of the application form. There's a little blurb, and I can, or maybe Courtney, can you find that link and drop it? But it's on the actual application, the 3-sentence paragraph at the top. It's linked under scoring criteria. I can get there. Although that's probably the edit link, not the, here we go. There's the sharing link. Okay, any other questions? Thank you all for being here.
Hey, Ami, really quick. I just
Yeah.
wanted to double check that Ivanhoe hasn't been funded in the past 2 years. We have a lot of new leadership.
Ivanhoe Neighborhood Council?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'm gonna launch a last little poll just to see where everybody's at. Whoops. Gotta go to my exit poll. It's 2 questions. Just want to know if you're planning to apply for a Get Farming mini grant. And then if this info session was at all helpful to you. Anybody else gonna respond? Still thinking about it? All right, I'll end the poll, share the results. Okay, we got 2 people that are ready to go. They're planning to apply and know what they're gonna apply for. Someone that wants to apply, but still thinking about the right project, and another person not sure. Glad that this was somewhat helpful or very helpful. I am available as a resource over the next month. And then Haley, who we introduced at the beginning, will be starting in mid-November, and she'll also be a resource in the final couple weeks of the grant. So we really encourage you, especially those of you who are still thinking about what project to apply for or aren't sure yet, reach out to us. My email, I'll put in the chat, is ami@cultivatekc.org. I'm happy to respond by email, jump on a call with you, anything that would help you feel comfortable getting an application in. I think And if you have questions about, any of those other opportunities we mentioned briefly at the beginning, the Casey Grow Grant, we know there's going to be a second round this winter for the water access grants for Kansas City, Missouri. And then we can put you in touch with NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service, for high tunnel projects as well. So we're always here as a resource and happy to chat. With that, it's 1 o'clock. We'll let you all go, but thank you. I appreciate you all taking the time to learn more about this grant program.